Namaste, good morning and good afternoon from wherever you are. I'm Creeson Agecoutay. Welcome to APTN National News. Thank you for joining us. A Mi'kmaq woman says she has been physically and emotionally traumatized after a New Brunswick RCMP officer arrested her last month. Christina Gillies says she just wanted help because she believed her daughter was in distress. Angel Moore has this exclusive interview with Gillis. However, a warning, some viewers may find some of this content disturbing.
The bruises have faded a little, a far cry from what they looked like 2 weeks ago when these photos were taken.
Right here is caved in, yeah. And then my nose here is broken, and then over here I have bone that's still moving around a little bit, and then these teeth were pushed back up here.
Christina Gillis says a Western Valley Regional RCMP officer did this damage when he punched her in the face multiple times.
I'm scared. I'm probably gonna be scared for the rest of my life because I called them to help me.
It happened on June 13th in Richmond Corner, about 100 kilometers northwest of Fredericton. Gillis called 911 because her 16-year-old daughter was freaking out and ran off into a field.
She started to have one of her episodes because she's got like mental illness and stuff, and it was more extreme than usual, and I felt bad for her father and her brothers and myself as well, but I just didn't want it to escalate more.
But escalate it did when 4 RCMP officers showed up. She hoped they would calm the situation, but things got worse.
And I just questioned it. I was like, I don't understand why they're taunting her right now when we're trying to de-escalate the situation and calm my daughter down.
She claims that she approached one of the officers to ask why they are upsetting her more.
That's when he grabbed my arm and he flipped me over like a rag doll and did what he wanted with me. And I didn't know if I was gonna survive it because I was turned over and almost beat to death.
At several points in the interview, Gillis had to take a break to collect herself. The Serious Incident Response Team, called CERT, is investigating the officer who assaulted Gillis. CERT is a civilian-led police watchdog that investigates when officers are involved in serious incidents with the public. Director Aaron Nouse told APTN News they are investigating.
Right now, we can't say much more than what's been released in the media release. We are conducting an investigation. It's proceeding as quickly as possible.
However, the Gillis family, who are from the Agecoutay First Nation, is upset with CERT's media release that several details are incorrect, such as Gillis's arrest when she was struck in the face. But Christina insists she did not know she had been arrested until she was sitting in the police car. Angie Gillis is Christina's sister.
I believe the narrative, in my opinion, is the RCMP narrative. It is their story as they're telling it. And this is why I felt like my sister, when I tell her, I said, it's so important for you to tell your story.
Nouse admits that most investigators are former RCMP, but insists the investigation will be impartial.
We're, uncovering every stone that needs to be uncovered and conducting a thorough and fair investigation.
Christina is still scared and is staying with her sister in Nova Scotia.
I'll never call 911 again. I'll help my daughter. I'll figure it out.
Christina was charged for assaulting a police officer, uttering threats, obstruction, and mischief. She has to appear in court next September, and there is no word on when the CERT investigation will end. Angel Moore, APTN National News, Agecoutay, also called Halifax.
Yellowknife can be ground zero for people experiencing homelessness in the territories, but advocates say there needs to be more supports, and the city says they're listening and hoping for recommendations. Our reporter Charlotte Moore-Jacobs brings us the story.
Georgina Frankie is an ally to the homeless in the Northwest Territories. People like Kathleen, originally from Kuluktuk, Nunavut, but for the last 5 years, on the streets of Yellowknife, sleeping in emergency drop-in shelters. She wouldn't talk to us, but agreed to share what she knew with Frankie.
Our cycle is from the foster care
And then to the streets.
and to the streets.
When you become
of
an adult,
age,
what else are you supposed to do? Where else are you supposed to go when
you're not educated. They never really properly educate them because they're not they're Indigenous.
Kathleen says she would sleep in a tent outside if she had one. So that's what Frankie's doing. She's helped build the first foundation of what's being called a tent encampment on green space overlooking the territorial legislature.
We're trying to provide safety for the homeless as well. Do you think there's a lot of support from the government? No? How can...
It's just like an adult daycare.
On June 26, around 100 people gathered for a roundtable on homelessness hosted by the City of Yellowknife. Local politicians, nonprofits, and community members attended.
Like if you're here as an ally, please help them. We need tents.
Mayor Rebecca Alty says it's an opportunity to speak towards what government and residents can do to help.
There is discussions with the territorial government since the first tent pad has been set up on Commissioner's land. So we'll have to see how that can go and what that can look like.
Participants had to answer questions like, if down the road in 10 years no plans worked, what would the Yellowknife homeless situation look like?
Have a seat open for Indigenous counselor. In Salvation Army, drop-in day sobering center, in schools, work with our younger generation to break the cycle.
Tina Wrigley is from Delaney. She's a mother of 4, a day school survivor, has experienced homelessness, and is training to be a counselor.
I knew most of our people that's on the street that's homelessness. Nobody talks about mental illness. Like, we come here, we talk about homelessness, how to stop homelessness. In order for us to really take care of homelessness, we gotta take care of them within them.
Wrigley pointed out the lack of Indigenous representation and homeless people at the roundtable and said their mental health needs to be taken care of.
Give me back my piece of land so I could make an Indigenous healing center for my people.
The latest point-in-time numbers are from 2021. There are over 300 people experiencing homelessness in Yellowknife. For now, a What We Heard report on the roundtable with recommendations will go to City Hall, the territorial government, and to the public. Charlotte Mort-Jacobs, APTN National News, Yellowknife.
American Indian movement activist Leonard Peltier has been denied parole today. Peltier's parole hearing was last month on June 10th at a penitentiary in Coleman, Florida. Peltier was convicted of 2 counts of first-degree murder in the deaths of 2 FBI agents in Pine Ridge Indian Reservation in South Dakota and has been serving 2 life sentences since 1976. From the beginning, Peltier has maintained his innocence, and both the investigation and convictions were riddled in controversy. Peltier will be eligible for another parole hearing in June of 2026, but his supporters worry if the now 79-year-old will make it to that day, as he has been suffering from diabetes and other serious health conditions. 3 First Nations in BC are calling on the federal government to return a parcel of land to them. It sits within their traditional territory in Surrey, BC, but as CTV's Abigail Turner reports, a farmer who has been growing potatoes for decades would be at risk of losing his family farm.
300 acres of industrial zone land known as Campbell Heights North sits in Surrey.
Look around at our beautiful land that was taken away from us.
The Katzie, Kwantlen, and Semiahmoo First Nations want the land returned back into their names.
We come to you with the request rooted in justice and reconciliation. We ask for the return of a portion of our traditional territory. This request is not about reclaiming the past, but about creating a future where our people can thrive once more.
According to the federal government, the Crown land has been declared as surplus, but the majority of it has been leased to Tyler Heppel and his farm for 50 years.
We are not against truth and reconciliation. We believe that it is an important thing here in Canada, but we believe that it should not come at a cost for food security.
According to Heppel, the land is extremely fertile and the backbone of local food supply, producing more than 700 million pounds of vegetables per year. His fear that the trio of First Nations would not keep the crops.
The KKS said, which is they are in it for economic reconciliation, which is absolutely their right. But I also believe that there's a world where that can be worked out and this land is not paved over.
The First Nations could not give a clear answer when asked what they do with the parcel of land, pointing to economic reconciliation.
This is not a conversation about food security or farming and nations. This is a conversation between federal Crown lands and 3 First Nations.
Heppel tried to add his land to the Agriculture Land Reserve, but the Agricultural Land Commission concluded it did not have jurisdiction. This is the largest piece of Crown land remaining in the nation's shared territories, returning it to something they say would, quote, move Canada forward. Abigail Turner, CTV News, Vancouver.
We're always looking for your feedback or story ideas. Here's how you can continue the conversation. If you have a story and you want to share it here, send us an email to news@aptn.ca. To read and watch our stories, go to aptnnews.ca. You can find us online on your favorite social media sites, including TikTok, YouTube, LinkedIn, and X. Follow APTN News to join the conversation and see our latest stories. 5 First Nations and Métis Nation Saskatchewan is moving ahead on a big green energy project. We'll tell you all about it when we return. Stick around. Welcome back. A historic agreement has been signed between 5 First Nations, the Métis Nation Saskatchewan, and energy infrastructure giant Enbridge. The deal looks to bring a wind farm to the southern part of the province capable of powering more than 100,000 homes. Our video journalist Rachel May has more. We seem to have a technical issue with that story. Our apologies. We'll be sure to air it in a future newscast. For more than 26 years, reporter and host Nelson Bird has been a staple for CTV viewers across the country, and he has truly left an impact on Indigenous journalism. Last week, it was a bittersweet time as it was Nelson's last day with CTV News. Morgan Campbell brings us a brief look at his journalism career.
Nelson Bird, CTV News, Regina.
A familiar face trusted by Saskatchewan viewers for more than a quarter century.
It's a concern echoed by the provincial politicians.
Nelson Bird started as a reporter with CTV Regina in 1998.
I mean, to me, he was just solid. And, you know, in a business where there's lots of egos and lots of change that, you know, impacts people in different ways, he was always sort of a rock.
That same year, Nelson was named host of Indigenous Circle, a half-hour show airing Sunday nights across the province.
Here at the Memorial Arches of Menon Gate in Ypres.
Nelson's dedication and enthusiasm took the show far beyond the borders of Saskatchewan, from the South Pacific to Belgium to New Mexico.
We're going to put the wow in powwow.
After 15 years as host, Nelson stepped into a new role, passing the reins to Creeson Agecoutay.
He'd pick up a camera, tell you how to film it, tell you who to get, tell you who to interview, what questions to ask. He knew it all.
Nice to see you again, Creeson.
Creeson went on to CTV National News before becoming host of APTN's National Cast.
You know, he made me believe in myself. I probably wouldn't be where I am today without him. Let's just say that.
Since 2013, Nelson has mentored dozens of journalists during his tenure as local assignment editor, mostly behind the camera, while still filling in on IC when needed.
He not only reflected Indigenous stories, he showed Indigenous youth that they can do it too. And I don't think you can kind of put a price on that.
Nelson ensured lots of levity along the way, even in the face of difficult topics like the identification of unmarked graves at residential school sites and the Pope's visit to Canada.
His mission to tell good Indigenous stories and find good Indigenous stories that connect with people. And he did that day in and day out throughout the week, throughout the year.
Now, CTV viewers are saying goodbye to one of the greatest of all time.
If horses aren't your thing, there's plenty of other animals to check out at this year's Buffalo Days.
Recipient of the Queen Elizabeth Platinum Jubilee Medal and the RTDNA Lifetime Achievement Award. Ready for a new challenge.
He is a storyteller, and maybe the stories change, but the importance of the message never changes.
And to find the common thread that binds us all.
Nelson himself puts it best. It was a good run, 26 years with some amazing adventures. To a teacher, mentor, and friend.
So I say thank you to all, each and every one of you.
Thanks for the memories, and best of luck.
A first-of-its-kind program was announced at the Atlantic Ballet in Moncton last week. As CTV's Alana Pickrell shows us, it's a pathway for upcoming Indigenous dancers to become professional performers.
For 16-year-old Dakota Verner, dance isn't just something she does.
It made me feel like I was more than just living on the reserve. It made me feel like I was important and I can do stuff, and it makes me feel good as a person.
Today, she shared her jingle dress dance in front of a room full of people as a brand new intercultural Indigenous dance program was announced at Atlantic Ballet Canada.
The name of this program is Maui Amalgadijik. Mao Ga Dine. They dance together.
A first of its kind that opens new doors when it comes to becoming a professional dancer.
I thought I was going to have to go be in accounting. That is my dream at the moment, but now I have a next step to be a dancer in my career, and I would love to do this.
The first cohort will be made up of 8 Indigenous dancers from New Brunswick. Throughout the 2-year program, they'll complete 840 hours of dance right here at home.
With all the 360 kids that I worked with across our province, none of them had a career in dance, professional dance, post their dancing career as a pow dancer.
For 1 week a month, from Sunday to Sunday, dancers will come to Moncton to train with professional artists.
It is an honor for us to have the first program in this region be for Indigenous emerging dance artists.
The groundbreaking initiative received $450,000 to support Indigenous youth in their dance goals.
It's such a big thing because we have been known to be taken away from our communities, taken away from our families, our friends, and to create that bond again, to be able to bring us all back together is just such a beautiful concept.
With a focus on contemporary dance, the Intercultural Indigenous Dance Program hopes to fill a missing piece, not just in New Brunswick, but in all of Atlantic Canada down the road. Alana Pickrell, CTV News, Moncton.
A short break now, but when we return, we'll tell you all about how one reporter is being recognized by Apple Music. We'll be right back. Over on the East Coast, St. John's 12, Charlottetown 26. The Grand River 16, Kuujjuaq 20. Saguenay 26, St. Jovite 26 as well. London 29, Peterborough 27. Sioux Lookout 19, Sudbury 22. Puckatawagan 25, Gaunt's Lake 22. Winnipeg 24, Barons River 23. Swift Current 20, Yorkton 21. La Ronge 28, Uranium City 28 as well. Northern Alberta, High Level 23, Peace River 20. Medicine Hat 22, Edmonton 23. Tofino 18, Penticton 26. Dees Lake 18, Smithers 19. Beaver Creek 18, Watson Lake 22. Yellowknife 23, Norman Wells 18. Inuvik 18, Colville Lake 13. Chesterfield 14, Cambridge Bay 7. Iqaluit 10, Iqaluit 7. Last February, APTN's Daniel Paradis traveled to Nunavut to tell the untold stories of resiliency and adaptation in our country's most northern communities. For years, the people there have been at the front lines of the climate crisis. Out of those stories, Daniel produced a 6-part series podcast titled The Place That Thaws. Now, Apple Music has recognized her hard work and is highlighting it for millions of listeners. We recently spoke to Daniel about being in the spotlight. Here's that interview. Hey Danielle, first off, congrats on this. It's very exciting. How are you feeling about the honor?
Thank you so much. Yeah, it's like you said, honor. It's a big honor and a big title to be a voice of change. So I feel a little pressure to live up to that. But if it means that more people are going to listen to the podcast and engage on the subject of climate change in the North, then I think that's really important.
Were you expecting anything like this when you were putting this podcast together?
No, I really didn't. Like, when you're talking about something like climate change, my main struggle was just, will people listen to this podcast? How do we make people care? And so we took great care to do a narrative arc and focus a lot on people's lives and the experiences. And, you know, to many of us, that far north, the high Arctic is quite an exotic location. So I wanted to rest more on that intrigue and then hopefully teach people as they went along. But you know, when you're doing this work, of course awards and recognition is nice, but you can't really have that in the forefront of your mind when you're doing something.
Yeah, for sure. The Place That Thaws is an important story to tell about the Canadian Arctic. Do you feel it got the conversation going in the long run here?
I think it's the interesting thing about podcasts is that they have a really long tail. So, you know, you launch something and then months later, people are still discovering it. And so in this case, I think I haven't yet seen that, like, a big conversation spark from the podcast. I hope that this recognition will help to do that. But I do think that it is another layer in having people understand, you know, what's happening both in the Arctic and then to some extent what's happening further south where we are, because what happens up north affects us. And I think we need to draw that connection. So I think we're still waiting for that big conversation, even though climate change is everywhere as a subject. It's not with everyone. That's how I'd put that.
Yeah, it's definitely something we can come back to and talk about more for sure with each week and each year here. Do you have any more podcasts in the future?
I hope. I think I'd love to do another. You know, my dream is another season of The Place That Thaws. If that can happen, that would be amazing. Otherwise, I will be doing some work on some future podcasts, but I can't quite talk about that yet. So stay tuned.
We'll definitely for sure stay tuned. Daniel, thank you for chatting with us today. We really appreciate it.
Thanks, Creeson.
And that's your midday newscast for this Tuesday, July 2nd. Happy school break for all the students and graduates out there, and welcome back to the work week for all the workers out there as well, including us. Dennis Ward will be back for your evening newscasts. Make sure to join us then. From everyone here from our Winnipeg HQ and from our reporters across the country, Masicho, hai hai miigwech. Thank you for watching.